important because students are following what teachers do. So do join us. This is going to be a limited batch edition, and the first one is going to happen in January. And yes, let's talk about, we'll come back to this evening or this afternoon or this morning. And what are we going to do? We are going to talk about views on education overall. And what are our educationists who are there on the panel, what are their thoughts about the year that has gone by? What has been their greatest learning? And very important, what is their expert advice? And last but not the least, what is the vision statement? So I would request you to put your hands together. This is one of our very esteemed speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Shekhar. Here is Miss Vidya Murthy. Rafa, all the way from Colombia. And of course, the captain of our ship. Join your hands to welcome Current Ambassador of Tampere, Finland, and head of CCE, Mr. Hiram Kulkarni. Over to you, Hiram. Is Hiram there?
Hello.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello, Colonel. Hello, Vidya. And hello, Rafa. And I am waiting for Hiram to come up. Yes. All right. Over to you, Hiram. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simran, for this. I really appreciate, and I again welcome everyone. So it's a great, and also we can see some very fellow amazing educators with us from India, from Russia, from Armenia, from many other countries. I can see it on YouTube and Facebook. So this is a very interesting moment for all of us. Now almost 9 months are over of lockdown in many countries, and almost now we completed 1 year of the start of the COVID-19 crisis. So this is a time to look back and understand what happens and what the educators did across the globe. And for that, we have this amazing team with us. But I would like to start with one amazing person who has been a quite strong personality, a colonel, and now an amazing educator. So I would like to first request Colonel Shekhar to start his initial introduction of the topic. Colonel, sir, please.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you and each and every one of you. Thank you, Simran, for getting me in. It seems to be, as the discussions we had yesterday, an amazing interaction wherein we learn a lot more from each other. Right. I have been in the field of education for over 30 years. I was a proud soldier with the Indian Army for close to 22 years, part of the Army Educational Corps. And post that, I have been in the civilian space here in India, running CBSE, ICSE, international schools. And I was also fortunate to be the founder director of a vocational center, which has now trained well over 10,000 disadvantaged students, and we have placed over 80% of them. This is a collaborative effort with the government of Gujarat, somewhere in our Prime Minister's state. Yeah. Beyond that, I've always said I have one wife and 2 daughters. My mother and mother-in-law stay here with me. So basically, I live in a ladies' hostels. You can see how terrorized I am. Yeah. Going beyond this, let's get this going. Hello to my fellow panelists, a brilliant team, and thank you for making me the opening batsman. I start with 2 small but very relevant stories. The first one, sometime, 10, 15 years back, this was in a small village close to Hyderabad, sometime in the month of May. And a large number of farmers came forward to meet the district collector. In the Indian context, India has got well over 700 districts. India's population is close to 140 crores, or we call about over 1.5 billion. So we have these district collectors, and they are the head of the administration for the whole district. And he came about. And these farmers said in the month of May, the temperatures were close to 42, 43 degrees. And these farmers told the collector, we want to meet him. And they were all surprised what happened, but good enough, the young collector met them. These farmers told him, please open up our schools. He said, why? This is the month of May. He said, sir, we have had a very bad harvest. Our children are starving. If you do not open schools, many of our children will die. And sure enough, the collector had the immense sensibility to reopen those schools and save a lot of lives. One, I move over. I have been a serving officer. I go to Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir is very famous in more ways than one. I'm talking about the early 90s. And we used to walk over 10 kilometers to conduct classes for grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, and to conduct map reading classes. And it used to be fascinating. You are going underground into a bunker, the board is there, you are started taking your class, suddenly you hear noises all around. And when those noises happen, out of those 40 students, about 15 of them will raise with the appropriate salute, tell us, sir, please leave us, we have to fire back. And having seen that happen, having these noises happen and still continue with those classes, my first response to all this pandemic-related hoo-ha was, what's the big deal? We have stayed alone for well over 6 months. I have received letters together from my family, 40 of them. I do not know how many of us use letters. I'm talking about the early 90s. And there were absolutely no communication whatsoever. And flights used to land with us after 40 days, 50 days. In Finland, Herab was talking about snow. Snow used to be well over 10 feet. And the nearest human occupation, you'll have to travel well over 30 kilometers. So keeping that perspective and trying to make our men, over 1.2 million of them in the world's greatest army, to make them learn better, we come back to a review of what we have here today. Firstly, India has over 320 million students, 249 million of them in schools. Two, the vast majority of our schools are in the state sector. In India, it is a federal government. We have a concurrent system. And the private school system takes care of almost 50% of our students. And those private sector teachers have been under tremendous pressure. The various state and central governments have attempted to reach out to the students. As some of my fellow panelists will also expand upon equity, I will not go into it. First and foremost, India's population of students is equal to the population of the United States. I repeat that for all of us to understand. India's student population is equal to the complete population of United States, and the vast majority of us, in terms of what we are doing, would be in terms of 56% of our population is below the age of 27. So the challenge to reach across to them in terms of getting them online, getting them to understand, has been huge. And those challenges, the teachers have come up in terms of real efforts. They have gone beyond the call of duty to reach across, but it has been uneven. And I, for one, after 9 months, without a vaccination coming in, I'm concerned and worried that over the next year or so, we will have to cover up a year's syllabus, a year's time in 2 years of syllabus. And how do we reach across without losing precious time learning outcomes and not having a gap year wherein appointments are taken? Did you graduate in 2021 or 21-22? Keep those profiles separate. You are not good enough. That is the challenge I think we are facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel. I think this was uh, quite an experience, and I think what you have given a similarity between the lockdown this versus lockdown in the minus 40 degrees in the northern part of India. It has some different experience altogether, and that's a learning part. So with this start of the overall webinar, I would now request Vidya. uh, she is an amazing speaker, and she also articulates the vision in a such a way so that how we can be able to create the learning experiences from the school level and even at the corporate level. So I want Vidya to start her comment.
Thank you, Hiram. It's incredible to be here with all of you. I've participated in many webinars, and I must acknowledge that there's been a certain element of webinar fatigue. But you know what? When I have co-panelists like this who are able to shine new perspectives, it truly broadens my mind. And I feel very honored and very privileged. And thank you, Hiram, and thank you, Simran, for bringing us all together. My name is Vidya Murthy, and I run an organization called Bassett Education India. We are part of the Global Bassett Business Group. We're based out of Detroit in Michigan. I used to work there for several years as head of their client services. And what we used to do really was communication counseling. And we used to help corporates define their relationships with all of their internal and external stakeholders. I'm going to fast forward that. And as we worked with executives at all levels of the ladder and on multiple continents, whether it was India, Europe, or Asia, one of the things that became increasingly clear to me was it's not really the academic knowledge, the domain expertise, or the technical skills that I think powers people up the corporate ladder. And I have come to believe, and it is my opinion, that it is life skills that really help us lead not only professionally successful lives, but personally fulfilling lives as well. Which is why Bassett Education India strives to empower teachers, students, school owners, college graduate students, undergraduate students, incubation centers, small and medium sized companies, as well as large corporates with life skills and communication skills that we hope will make their life easier. So I know this is such an interesting topic that we're all talking about here today. And, just like the Colonel said, I have a couple of stories myself that I'd like to share. Both of them are completely disassociated from each other, but we'll talk about them in different aspects, I guess, over the next half hour or so. A parent came to me, and she was a parent of about an 18 or a 19-year-old child, not child, a young adult. And the parent was extremely concerned that the child was becoming increasingly isolated, indisciplined, aggressive, and rude. And it was mostly passive aggressive behavior that the child was demonstrating. I decided to have a conversation with this young lady. And I remember how free spirited I was and carefree I was when I was in my late teens. And I'm sure all of us here very fondly remember those days. And this this young lady, she was sitting in front of me, and we were in my office. She wouldn't look up from her phone. And that was okay by me. And I just wanted to have a very casual conversation with her. And I just happened to ask her, how many friends do you have? How many friends do you have? And if any one of you here were to ask me, I could probably just put up one hand and tell you how many friends I really have. She said, looking down at her phone, 622. Without even looking up, she said 622. Now, I pride myself on my relationship skills, but she left me way behind because I was left with my pathetic 5 fingers and she had this fancy number. One incident, and then I'm going to talk about something else entirely different. Of course, 2020 has been an insane year. Who could have predicted this coming? I mean, where are all the peers and the astrologers? And nobody could have predicted what we are all going through. And I think that collectively we have to be so proud of the human race for having come out of it and dealing with it. I think in the best way we can. So in the apartment building that we live, we have very few apartments. There are only 2 apartments on every floor. And because all of us are working from home, the parents are working from home, and of course, all children are taking their courses online, school courses online. Every house has their own Wi-Fi, and there are only about no more than 4 residents in every apartment: a husband, wife, mostly 1 or 2 kids. There is hardly any apartment that does not have at least 15 to 18 devices that are linked onto their own Wi-Fi. So when you have 15 to 18 devices, you're talking multiple televisions, iPads, phones, laptops. But we have a maintenance crew downstairs and a security crew downstairs. And those workers, they bring their children as well. And all their children gather together in the pantry, in the janitor's pantry actually, and they all share about 2 devices between about 11 kids so that they could all listen in turns at least for 15 to 20 minutes to their teacher. It's really something for all of us to think about. The times are unprecedented, but our responsibility is enormous. It is truly our moment to rise to the call. And I'm so glad here that all of us here are doing exactly that. We are brainstorming and just trying to figure out, learning from each other, how we can do it better. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Vidya. I think Colonel gave one dimension of the life, and you gave the totally other dimensions on the other end, which is near close to our life. And I think this was a harsh reality. And now this kind of a disparity and inequality that we have to come up, and that's the objective. Now let's from here fly to other part of the world, to Colombia, and my friend Rafael Miranda is there, and I request Rafael to start his introduction first and then his points. Very interesting topic to come.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's quite an honor to be here with this amazing panel of experts. Like, I feel so inspired by your stories and everything you share. I feel that it's quite a privilege to be here and be sitting among your ranks. So I thank Haram and Shimram for this invitation. And I'd like to tell you about what has been going on with us here in Colombia. Colombia is a very unequal country. We have very marked differences in what happens in public and private education. Usually, private schools are the ones that have the resources to try different things, while public schools are still behind in terms of access to technology, access to a large enough number of teachers, and that has been very difficult. And that has also led to a general belief that this year has been a waste of time in terms of education. But I do believe that is wrong, because lots of things have happened. The first thing that happened this year was that the digital literacy that people had to develop this year is unprecedented. People had to learn. We have students in second, third grades learning how to upload documents to a cloud, managing their cloud and organizing their files, organizing them in categories, in folders. They have developed communication skills online, and they have developed also autonomy, self-regulation, and those are skills that go beyond the content. And I believe that this is one of the roots of the problem and the misconceptions here. Because most of our schools, especially the private ones, the ones that always rank high in standardized tests, what they tried to do when the pandemic struck and when we had to run home to a quarantine, most of them, what they tried to do was basically move the traditional class, the lecture type of class, to an online setting. And that required having children in preschool, in first grade, in second grade, paying attention for 1 hour and 30 minutes to a teacher online, which is simply ridiculous. We know that the normal attention span of an adult is 25 minutes. So how can we expect a child to pay attention for an hour and a half? It's simply not going to happen. But the tools and the resources and the ideas and the strategies have been around for a very long time. We know, and we have known in pedagogy about project based learning, problem based learning, challenge based learning. We've known about these things for years. So this was an excellent opportunity to make that transition. At our school, I am the head of foreign languages at a Hebrew school here in Colombia. And what the school did, which I find commendable, and I feel very proud to be part of that school, because what the principal and the administrators did was get together a team of creative, innovative teachers that were a little more tech savvy, and within a week, and that was a huge challenge. Within a week, train the rest of the staff to not only teach online, to use online tools, become proficient at using, like in this case, the Google Suite. Not only that, but also how to move our entire model of education towards a model based on projects and transversal projects at that. So we had to train everybody, and we spent like a good week, full time, basically 24/7, training our fellow teachers, working as a team, so we could plan and execute successful projects. I'm going to show you one example of what we did. This is a project that we led in with our 11th grade students, because we were reading the book 1984 by George Orwell. And it's such an interesting book, such a rich book to discuss. And what we did was get together with the philosophy teacher, with a technology teacher who's also an expert in games, and he's really into game-based learning, which is one of the fields that I have been most passionate about. And we came up with this idea of creating a simulation, a role-playing game in the context of 1984. So what we did was sell the idea to our kids through this presentation that I'm showing you right now. We sold the idea that we were in a virtual environment called Utopia. And how would this experience work? We were going to have a virtual world that was entirely open, and it was filled with happiness and joy. That was all the conceit that we were selling our kids. And you can be whatever you want to be. Now, we also said, like, we were trying to sell it as something fun, and we were showing them, like, as we played the sessions of the game, publicity all around. Everything is I mean, they're so familiar with the context of video games that we were telling them about the graphics. It was all sitting down around a Zoom call, talking about this world. So this experience was going to be about this. If you could be free of the limitations of your body and have a power in a virtual world, what would it be? We asked kids, and we used this tool called Pear Tech, in which they could respond to our slides with their devices, so we could get that feedback from presentations. Again, the same thing here. We could get that feedback. So we told them they could choose some types of avatars, so they could be either a fighter, a healer, a hacker, or a mystic. So we created a set of powers that each one of these characters would have, and we told them that they were going to play basically stories. What they didn't know was that these stories were basically about this authoritarian government using them, manipulating them to do their dirty work. And at the same time, we were reading 1984 and doing all this analysis. And with the philosophy teacher, we started introducing, like, the manifests of the revolution and the resistance in this world, who were trying to get the players to understand what was really going on and understand the philosophy behind it. All this led to a very interesting philosophy symposium at the end, where our students were discussing all these topics in a foreign language, in English. So we asked them, how would we evaluate this? We asked them to write a user log in which their character would basically narrate their experience in first person. And we wanted to do it in a platform called Twine, in which we could create branching storytelling. So we would get to one scene and then branch into the different narrations of each one of our students. Right? Then we asked them to choose their avatar. Where could we begin? We had a user license agreement, which was a document we created with all the rules of everything we were going to do, the evaluation system. And we told them we're going to evaluate both the user log and the user review. That was the experience we created. And it was an incredible experience with our students because we could see a lot of creative thinking. It was all centered around them. They were the ones producing knowledge, producing language all the time. We were simply there to keep the story going. And the level of analysis and depth that happened when we got to that philosophy symposium was just incredible. So if you ask me, what happened here with this lockdown was basically a laboratory of a lot of teachers coming together to think, how do we adapt to a new world? And now the challenge is, if we ever go back to our schools like on a normal day, if we ever go back, will we go back to what we were doing in the past? Or what lessons have we learned? And in the end, I think that's the question that matters most. What have we learned from this period? What kind of education did we get in this period as teachers that is going to inspire new practices after we go back to whatever we're going to call normal?
Wow, Rafa, this is so good. This is like really food for thought. Is like, okay, so this whole transition happened to this new normal, and then where are we going to go back? Can we go back to the normal that we knew? And this is something I think we all need to come back together and think about this and elaborate it more when we talk about it in January. But thank you so much for sharing this with us. So, I was reading a very interesting article in a magazine by International Center for Journalists. And the article's name is COVID-19 and Education and what's the future of school. And it basically draws the inequalities of this whole education system around the world during these last 9 months. So where, it talks about Kenya trying to adapt to this digital technology, but parents were not supporting. Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal were trying to test robots. They were trying to test robots. Japan, some students with their robots did attend a graduation ceremony. And Denmark adopted something called as pods, where there were only small group of teachers and students. So, there was innovation happening. Yes, as a country in India, there were a lot of segments, as Colonel Shekhar pointed out correctly, they were struggling, but there were some innovations. So I come back to the next segment to each one of you with 2 points. The first is the greatest learning, because if we wouldn't have learned during this, we wouldn't have been capable to innovate anything. You call it innovation, you call it discovery. As Rafa said, we knew a lot of systems, but we never implemented them. We never worked on them. So my first question to each of the panelists would be, what was your greatest learning? And then how did this greatest learning of yours in the last 8-9 months helped you to create or innovate something in this field of education? So, of course, I come back to Colonel Shekhar. Over to you, sir.
Right. First of all, once again, it's been wonderful hearing Vidya and Rafa. Are you by any chance related to Rafael Nadal? It was as good as that when he was playing it. Congratulations. Great fun hearing about 1984 and the way they look at it. Right. Simran, that article I also happened to read, so a good connect to have. The point here in terms of, I'm a mentor of a school, which is a startup school. You have just about had 700 students. And what is the biggest innovation we tried? In terms of the mindset of the teachers found respectability in failing. I repeat, they found respectability in failing. It was tough. Because as the chief mentor, I pretty much have a wide latitude in what I am doing. In the first ever annual day of the school, I said, no adult on the stage. And from nursery children down to class 7, they were all presenting it. I'm sure those 70 teachers had multiple heart attacks, but somehow we made it. And those mistakes were accepted, but they were still not quite willing to accept it. Came the pandemic, an outstanding principal was very much into computers. The first thing we convinced the teachers was, you have to now innovate. I've always said that it is easier to reform the Indian Army rather than the teachers. The teachers are much more rigid. The Indian Armed Forces are a little more flexible. I'm sure Vidya and Party may not entirely agree with me, but if the period has to be at 9:20, the bell rings. Whatever happens, the teacher will be there and she will It's not he, she will start the lesson. So there is a rigidity to that system. So to that extent, I'm thrilled with the pandemic without the deaths and the untoward, unbelievable misery it has caused across. So what had happened was we had teachers completely reluctant to come in front of the camera. When they come in front of the camera, they were reluctant to talk. When they talked, they were reluctant to talk in English. And after they started talking in English, they would not upload it. So it was initially, the first week was a complete disaster. And I remember the principal talking to me, sir, ab kya hoga? I mean, what will happen? This is in Hindi, what will happen? But sure enough, things improved. And the second thing we did was talk to the teachers one-to-one and interacted with them in terms of what they are facing at home. The Indian situation is noticeably different at some levels. The teacher, the majority of them are ladies. We, the men, are much more under threat than the tigers of India. We are not very popular as leaders these days. It's women who dominate the spectrum here. So the teacher is a mother first, then she's a daughter-in-law, then she's a spouse, and then she's a teacher. Combining all of this at home, and with the teacher, the lady being at home, the demands from the home was tremendous. I remember a teacher recording her video in her storeroom at 1 o'clock in the night with the parents, etc., having gone off to sleep, but still she managed it. So after the initial videos came about, we said, do not limit yourself to yourself, open it up to the students. And sure enough, the students took it over after an initial phase of hesitation. And in that new school, now we have close to 30 students having their own YouTube channels, grades 4, 5, and 6. And many of them are creating remarkable new content in terms of what is happening. The last point, wherein it was a huge challenge, was the socio-emotional aspect. Students at home, unfortunately, too much of verbal and physical violence. How do we get across to it? How do we link them up? Despite the pandemic, we encouraged our teachers to visit the homes with all the protocols. So they managed to visit more than half the number of households. And luckily, we were able to get that linkage back, wherein children candidly spoke about what is happening at home, the parents shared, and we were able to create a new community. Have we been totally successful? No, not really, not at all. We are still a long way, but the key word, TRUST, trust, has been established. Hopefully, we will take it forward, because till now, parents were saying, oh, Excel, if we lose a year, what's the big deal? Now the realization has started. 1 year, yeah, we have a lot more to do. We cannot lose a year. Yes, there is a question, Simran. Answer me.
No, sir, that's a compliment for you. I just translated it for you in English so that you could read it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great. So this is what really happened. And one of the parents candidly came up and said, we are fed up of keeping these two children at home. Please take them back. Do whatever you can. Please have the children back. So to that extent, parents started realizing the poor unheralded teacher is more than what you imagine to be. Thank you.
All right. And Colonel, on this note, the program that we have upcoming with CCE Finland, Basic to Beyond, your school teachers could probably benefit from that. And it is just a 2 hours program. We will connect with you offline on that. So thank you very much for shedding the light. And thank you very much for talking about failure, because so many of us are very shy of talking about failure during pandemic. We all had to unlearn. We all had to fail somewhere. We all had to feel down somewhere. And as I read in my quote when I started, it is okay. It's kind of okay, yes. So I go to Vidya, of course. And Vidya, what was your greatest learning, and what was your creativity, contribution, innovation in this time? You're on mute. Sorry, Vidya, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. It was wonderful to listen to you, Colonel. Thank you so much for that unique insight. When you talk about, I think, our greatest learning collectively, I think for 2020, it has to be gratitude. It has to be gratitude for the things that all of us have taken for granted. Uh, the ability to shake hands, hug a friend, go out for lunch, not worry what a ringing phone brings. So, personally, on a human level, on a professional level, I don't think there's anything else that beats gratitude. Having said that, if you are talking about two specific innovations or creative ways that we have tried to adapt to this new reality, I think that across platforms, especially in the months of the most extreme lockdowns like March, April, May, June in India, and I'm certain, in Colombia too, Rafael, this might have been the same. Across schools, whether it is an IB board or a state board or CBSE or SSE, I think that the most beautiful thing that educators have done is they have stopped striving for perfection. And they have put humanity and relationships, respect, and trust in each other above professional or academic perfection. And this has been done not just informally, but also formally. Formally, because I think people who manage schools, own schools, run schools, and manage teams of teachers, they have drastically, revised the parameters for defining teacher performance. And teachers, schools, as well as academic boards, and even up to universities, where you have the entire SAT waived off for undergraduate admissions in the USA for this year. And for them to make such drastic changes to program content, to curriculum, and to not strive for perfection, but to try to stay focused on staying connected and on mental health, I think that, that's got to be right on top for me. The second thing that, if I could throw in just one more thing, is I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how creative people have become when it comes to solution finding. And there are innumerable examples of classrooms online where they're celebrating birthday parties online, they're hosting social hour online, they're watching movie clips online, the teachers is chatting online. And I think learning and teaching has taken on an entirely new face. And it's humbling to see how much the average person has reinvented themselves. And this is average people doing truly extraordinary things. Because the average teacher in India, like most of us, she lives in a 1 or a 2 bedroom apartment. Her husband is working from home. Her children are taking online classes. There may or may not have been Wi-Fi in the house before the pandemic, and you only have that one little area or 2 rooms, and there's not that much silence. There's not that much privacy. And like the colonel said, 9:20 to a teacher does not mean 9:22. And so she has to be juggling and make sure that she's on. And truly, I think the hero of the year, I think, are the teachers and the students who ensured a certain amount of continuity. And I think those would be my 2 cents, Simran.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Vidya. And I think I'm just like overwhelmed with each one of you speaking and giving your inputs. And I see we have a very engaging audience. So here's a quiz for you, audience, is that tell us what are the 3 takes that you took from this webinar, and one of the best answers will get some kind of a course program free from CCE Finland. You know our website, you know our email IDs. Do write to us. Tell us what were your 3 points from this webinar that touched your heart and will be your greatest learning. And with this, I move to Rafa. Rafa, what was your learning And what was your innovation or creativity contribution?
Well, I mean, in terms of learning, I believe that the entire period has been a period of learning on so many levels. I believe that my fellow panelists have drawn a beautiful picture of what has been happening, and I can also relate. There are many stories here in my city, in Medellin, about kids who are the children of a street vendor, and they couldn't stay at home because they're too small. So the parent would take them out with them to the streets to sell, and they would set up like a small stool for the kid to have a small desk on the street with a cell phone so the kid could be in class. And you can find teachers wearing costumes, and I mean, the admiration that I have developed in this period for my fellow teachers has been immense. Another thing that I am very proud to say right now, and it's also something that I believe has changed, is that the team of teachers that we had at our school, and this is happening also in many other schools, have come together as teams. And they're not simply a staff of teachers working at the same school, but they have become teams working together. And the level of input that each one of the teachers can bring to a particular project is incredible. We last term we had a project about segregation and discrimination and inequality, based on the book To Kill a Mockingbird. And based on that, we started analyzing inequality with animals, with nature, with different groups of ethnic groups, with different social groups, and how that became such an interesting branching path for all the subjects to come in and analyze. From math, when we started looking at the statistics, from chemistry, from biology, thinking about environmental issues. So all the things that we could do were just incredible. And another level of learning for me has had to do with differentiation. Differentiation has been for me a very, very strong question, and it has been for me a very important topic that we need to really address as teachers. The fact that my own daughter in this period of online learning has been able to shine a lot more than she did when she was at school on site. The fact that she had the chance to stretch her legs, and she loves dancing and acting. So the fact that she could stand up in the middle of class and just do some twirls and act a little bit, and then come back and allow her to focus again, just that was incredible for me to witness. And her performance at school was a lot better in this period. And not only my daughter, this is the story of many of my students. Also, how many of my students felt that this online setting gave them the comfort if we allowed it, if we allowed for some asynchronous elements. I was telling you yesterday about the most famous Colombian YouTuber. In a period where we have so many YouTubers that are doing silly things, we have one YouTuber in Colombia called Julio Profe, who is a math teacher, and he has been creating videos for many years now in which he explained lots of math topics. Our students have been studying math with him, even though they go to class at school. But usually you have this very traditional setting for those math classes. So when they go home and they didn't understand anything, they go to Julio Profe. And Julio Profe has now received awards as a YouTube creator because of all the Colombian students that are now following his channel and learning math from him. We even had this anecdote about an exam, a math exam, a final exam, in which our students brought a printed picture of Julio Profe and posted it on a wall so they could pray to him in the middle of the exam.
Super. This is too good, Rafa. Oh my God, this is so super. So yes, and I will catch attention of him for a minute and ask his learning and his creativity contribution. I know he has done a lot. He's the captain of our ship, and he buzzes in creativity every hour. Forget the day. So let's hear it from him.
Yeah, I think as far as the CCE's work is concerned, actually, we try to learn from every step, and that's what we call ourselves as learning organizations, where the learning living organization, and who can be able to have the oxygen because of learning. That is the point. I think my point here is not to tell about what exactly we did actually, but at broad level, what we understood as a part of learning process. The first thing, when we interacted with the teachers across, and when we seen the classes online, because we work with many schools, first and one line is that Zoom meeting is not learning. So by just having the Zoom meeting or by having the Google Meet, you can't start the work. Second thing is that transferring from the physical classroom to online classrooms, we can't have the same rules and regulations of the physical classrooms. In fact, many parents expect that we should have 4 hours of classroom even on the online. At some place, I saw 7 hours of classroom starting from morning 10 o'clock till evening 5 o'clock. This is totally difficult actually, because we are doing online. It's not the same thing what has to be done. So as Rafael mentioned, as a part of work, and one of the very great work that has been done by my team, including Simran, Shireen, and my Milla, Mikkola, everyone, they created one coursework, how to do asynchronous learning with the early childhood educators and teachers, by which they can be able to engage the kids. We should not have more than 40 minutes of live session per day. And if we have to do it, what can be done in the asynchronous way? What can be done in the offline way? Because everyone is learning every minute. We need to capture the learning. So teacher's job is to capture the learning. So how to do that? That has been now created a system, and for that there is a coursework which is also available. And based on that, Simran and Shireen and entire team, they are conducting with our teams FE, everyone. They are creating the SISU preschool based on that. So I think this is one of the greatest learning for us. And this is a good research project for us also. In fact, even though these things will go away, we will continue doing it because that has created a lot of learning experience for us. Now, before I tell more about it, but I want, because this amazing speakers are here, I would like to give them more time for that. And my question, and this is a bit a kind of a negative question, but I want you to make it a positive. I wish that this pandemic goes immediately. That's my wish, I guess everybody's wish. But what if this continues for another 1 year or 1.5 years? What would be your recommendation or vision, and what could be your ideas to be for the teachers mainly? And I want any of the speakers to start first. What would be your recommendation if this pandemic goes for a long time?
Okay, shall I?
Yes, please, Colonel, sir.
Yeah, good. Great to hear both Rafa and Vidya's stories. Are when she talks about gratitude, it's so very important. In fact, I'm reminded of some of the toughest moments of my life. You are speaking to a father whose son has just died for the country, and you are picking up the phone and telling the mother or the father, your son is no more, is among the toughest I have ever faced. Good morning, Brigadier so-and-so, your son has given his life for the country just a few minutes back, and you have to relate to it. Without understanding empathy and gratitude, no way you can go ahead. And I still remember them, as yesterday when I had to make some of those phone calls. So the socio-emotional aspect of everything we do is so much more important. Yeah, coming to your question and what others have also stated. Firstly, in India at least, I do not expect schools to reopen even in June, because the word going around is we require to have vaccines. Vaccines are not coming up. So that's the word going around. So for me, I am a strong proponent for reopening schools at least for 2 to 3 days in a week. The nonsense which is being put around that this will happen, that will happen, for everything else it's possible. And I believe the administrators, the owners, all of us are scared and we do not want to confront reality. 2, the private schools are much lesser in number. They do not seem to have the political heft to push through. And governments are looking at it in terms of their own win-loss for short-term political interests. Keeping that aside, I believe that the continuation of this online thing for a longer period of time is going to have a more adverse impact than we can imagine. Just a study when parents are, an American study by McKinsey talks about 10-month loss overall in 1 year for maths alone. We are also talking about, as far as parents are asking, we believe 70% plus parents say that our children are going back. So how do we? My basic point is online can only do this much. Later on, I'll combine this with a question, what is the future of schools? The point which will come up is blended learning, global competencies, interdisciplinary learning will matter. To get vaccination going, it's going to be a wholesome process. The physics, the chemistry, the biology, the maths, the leadership, everything has to come through. So firstly, interdisciplinary blended learning will have to matter. Two, assessment and evaluation have to radically restructure itself. Imagine a student, it's going to happen. You have 30 students in a class, 10 of them are listening to you face to face. Those 10 are also listening to you online. 10 of them are listening to you asynchronous. Say you have covered Newton's first law of motion. Newton's second law is being covered for group B face to face. Group A becomes synchronous and group C now comes asynchronous. So you have 3 different sets of students coming through at 3 different levels of understanding. Unless we get our evaluation and assessment right, that is going to be tougher. So the next year, as far as we in India are concerned, is going to be much more than interesting. A new education policy will start getting itself implemented. School systems from the first past the post mark system have to change. The higher education systems have to integrate with the school systems, and the government is in a hurry. So my 3 things which is recommended is: 1, schools have to reopen. Hopefully my wish comes true. Secondly, teachers, students, and parents have to build up a much more stronger community. The teacher is now a parent, the parent is now a teacher. How this relationship becomes much more seamless is the key to being successful. And finally, we have to accept failure much more and give the students much more slack space in terms of understanding what they are going through, in terms of our assessment of what learning outcomes are. Earlier on, if in a class we had 6 learning outcomes, online we'll have to bring it down to 4. In that 4, only 50% of the students will reach all 4. You have still 50% not reaching the rest too. So from your original learning outcomes list, you are already 50% less. So can we scale this down? Can we understand this better or make our children think like what Major Somnath Sharma, the first ever Paramveer Chakra of India, said in Kashmir? The firing is coming from the left. The firing is coming from ahead of me. The firing is coming from my right. It's coming from behind me. But I am going to be here. I will be steadfast. Come what may, I will win this for India. And he was the man who saved Kashmir for us, the first ever Paramveer Chakra. That kind of instinct and that kind of passion is what we are going to be driven for. Thank you for your time.
Superb. I guess your speech is giving goosebumps actually. I think his speech or whatever has been, it's really remarkable, and I think you have led down the future quite well. I'll come to Vidya for her remarks on what will be the future of the school, and as well as on what will happen if this goes long term.
Yeah, but I think Rafa, do you have a question for Colonel?
Sorry, I couldn't see the video. Rafa,
Yeah.
do you have any point?
I wanted to make a few comments on what the Colonel was saying, because I do believe I also had the goosebumps, and I can feel the sense of country that the Colonel is presenting, and I can also feel this passion, because I do believe from my part, greatest challenges that is coming in the future is how do we manage not to go back to just things the way they were. And as the Colonel was talking about evaluation, I believe that there is one key point there that we need to continue addressing. If we continue thinking about education in terms of content, it's going to be very difficult to achieve learning outcomes in an online setting. Content is something that you can find all over the internet. That's very easy. But if we continue thinking about competence, and competence, defining them in terms of not only cognitive competence, not only academic competence, thinking about metacognitive competences, how we are helping our students learn about how they learn better. If we can manage to help them find their own learning style, the learning strategies that fit their type of brain, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to find a place in a hybrid setting, because I believe that that's what's coming. Rolling down this quarantine and bringing it back so we can be at school all the time. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to take time. So this is not something that we're going to see in this first semester. Maybe not even in the second semester. Who knows when? When are we going to have universal vaccination? Who knows? So focusing on learning about asynchronous practices for the online setting, for the hybrid setting, and even for the on-site setting. How do we manage to create learning experiences and abandoning the idea of class? I think that one of the missions that we had at our school was, let's abandon that idea of I'm going to teach a class. There is a document that I love. I read an article a long time ago that said less teaching, more learning. And it was focused on project-based learning. How do we create learning experiences in which I, as a teacher, don't have to be informing my students of the knowledge all the time? Because no matter how much I know, there will always be a more complete presentation of this same topic on the internet. I'm always going to find a better way to explain it on the internet, a bunch of videos, articles. I'm going to find ways. So what can I do as a teacher? Create learning experiences in which I promote different levels of competence, different levels of thinking, different levels of complexity. And that is going to make a difference with my students. So reducing teacher talking time, making real use of asynchronous tools, of asynchronous activities that will allow me to free myself from needing the attention of my students for 1 hour and a half while I explain. Instead of that, I create learning experiences. Here's the material, explore it as you will, and I'm here to help. And I'm here to get to know you as a student, to get to know your learning style so I can help you really exploit it. I had a student, and this is the story that gave me goosebumps this year. I had a student who just graduated from our school, and she wrote to me that she was very thankful because I taught her that she was smart. It's just that she was not smart the way traditional school expected her to be. And this is the kind of story that I would like to see replicate all over the world. Students that are understanding their type of learning so they can really exploit their own talents and not to be standardized by a school system that is not really there for the learning but for the teaching. If we focus on the teaching and not on the learning, then we're not focused on our students, we're focused on us. So I believe that this is the change that we need to see.
Yeah. Fair enough. The ego of the teacher.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Rafa. And we move to Vidya for her points, please.
Thank you. That's a hard act to follow after the Colonel and Rafa. I think you've covered most points. And if I were to chime in, when I was much younger, I went to the Hyderabad public school in the city of Secunderabad, and blessed really to be an alumnus. This institution, I think, has held me in good stead for the decades that have already gone by and will continue to serve me in the decades to come. I think that when you are talking about uncertainty and whether or not, this pandemic will come to an end and whether or not our lives will go back to normal, I think some things are here to stay. As much as I engage with leaders and educators at school, with principals, we know, for example, that hybrid learning is a definitive option. It is effective, and it has not been experimented with as much before as it has been over the last few months that the pandemic has come upon us. The second thing that I really believe, will change permanently, regardless of whether we are all physically in a classroom or not, are both pedagogical practices as well as assessment, standards. And more than anything else, I think it's teaching and learning methodologies, including experiential learning at all levels. And I think that is going to be a more application oriented, a more relevant way of transferring knowledge in a way to our younger generation, in a way that they can take it, learn it. It's really not about the content, it's about application, it's about usage. And I think that that is actually going to be empowering. As far as the teachers are concerned, they've already proved to us that they are far more resilient than we thought they were, and they're more creative. So, you know what? To me personally, one of the experiences that I've had as a mother of two teenage daughters, and the older one is in her last year of high school, is that as much as the pandemic has brought the school into the home, it has dragged parents into the classroom. You can hear your child's teacher. You can listen to your child participate. You can have a totally different eagle's eye view into what you only imagined before. And therefore, the role that you play as a parent, as a mentor, as a supporter is that much more enriched. And I truly believe, and guess the Colonel, might disagree with me. When I look back at my life and I tell myself, you know what? When a person is 45, 55 years old, do 18 months of disruption or 24 months of disruption really matter? You know what? In the end, it evens out. I don't think that teachers or parents or students really need to be so terrified of the uncertainty that lies ahead. We're going to get through it. It's not about content, it's about application, it's about concept, it's about the social and the psychological skills, and it's about support, and it's about getting through this together. I think when a person hits 50, 18 months when they were 14 years old or 8 years old or 21 years old doesn't really matter. And that's my honest take on it. I think time has a way of passing, and I think time has a way of working its magic. And I think we're going to be okay. So, in the long run, I think we might have to go back to school sooner than we think. There will be blended learning, there will be asynchronous learning, there will be hybrid methodologies, revised pedagogical practices, revised student assessment, revised curriculums. All of the changes that we are seeing are here to stay. And I don't think we should worry. We're going to be okay.
That's awesome. Yes, sorry, over to you, Hera.
No. Please go ahead, Simran. I think because this was really good, and I think what you mentioned, and everybody says that this was a good learning period for all of us. And as compared to the larger goal of the life, and if you can learn something, one basic thing from this part as a part of gratitude, trust, if you can be able to make value of life, value of connect, if we can learn this, I think then we learned a lot during this such a short period of life as compared to our bigger goal. So thank you very much, Vidya, for this. Actually, we have also along with us Shareen Ratnani. She would like to say some few words. Shareen, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and start your video.
Hi. Sorry, I have a. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but if okay. So my name is Shireen, and I'm from Indonesia, and I'm actually an early childhood expert and a teacher trainer as well. And I think, first of all, I would like to honor every early childhood teacher specifically because they have all gone out of their comfort zone to create something that I think it's been like an impossible dream. So I have actually been training a lot of teachers. I've trained over 800 teachers in the last few months. And I've told them that there is no classroom management. Your success is connection management. Because I think the entire learning triangle has changed from just being the child, the teacher, and the classroom to now the child, the teacher, and the parent. So what I find is really essential is to educate parents. And that's what I've been doing a lot of parenting workshops, because these parents frustrated, they don't know how to handle their children, they have to stay home, they're going through anxiety, their own financial burdens, and so much more. And with this added responsibility, I think as educators, we all need to take that extra step and educate parents and make them feel that, you know, that SEL first, make them feel happy, content, know what to do. They need to understand the difference between what is normal and what is not in terms of child developmental milestones, so that they can accept their children and support them, versus getting their children into that downstairs brain shut learning for them. So I think the core message that I want to get across is, as educators, we need to take up that extra responsibility to educate our parents as much as we can at a time like this, because we really don't know how the education landscape is going to be, especially with the early childhood. I don't know when toddlers will ever come back to school. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for sharing. And you know what? We at CCE Finland firmly believe parent as partners. So what a well put point, that especially early childhood, or actually any kind of K-12 level, educating parent and having parent engagement programs is so much important now more than ever, because they are there at home. And Vidya very rightly said that we are hearing the teachers. So as parent, we are observing the teacher. So forget the burden on the teacher, because she has larger audience. Her audience is not students anymore. So that's another part of discussion. But yes, parent education is so much important. And thank you so much for pointing this out.
And Sharing, thank you that you said that, okay, we want now connection management rather than the classroom management. So for that, actually, we have this SISU preschool. Actually, we are making sure that it's a connected family altogether, and we want to grow this family with our next amazing part, because in Finland we are having Santa Claus is from Finland. I guess everybody knows that. And on next Monday we are having one party for all our ECE students as well as for teachers on next Monday, and it's open for all. So all are welcome on next Monday at 3:00 Finland time. And we will try to see what we can be able to get it more interesting and fun. Simran will tell also about that as well. So Simran, please conclude this.
Yes, so this is, of course, this mainly our main audience will be children, because we want to make it exciting for them. And parents are requested to join fun. Teachers, yes, it is a break from your everyday teaching, learning. So come have fun, and we're going to, of course, we're going to have a small learning part too, but it is more of celebrations and more of Christmas story and more of songs and, you know, playtime for children. So you will have to visit our website for different time zones around the world, and it is happening on 21st December. So yes, with this, I think my part I conclude here, and my word of thank you will not be enough to thank each one of you, Colonel Shekhar, Vidya, Rafa, and you guys were with us yesterday and all throughout the week, you know, brainstorming, exchanging ideas. And I hope we can, come back together in January or in February and talk more about how has it changed in the last 2-3 months. So yes, I will hand it over to Hiram for his closing note.
Yes, thank you very much for this. And as Simran said that, okay, I guess thank you is a very two small words as compared to the wealth of knowledge. At the same time, what experiences, including Colonel Shekhar, Vidyamurthy, and Rafael Miranda shared. So thank you very much for your contribution. I really appreciate from each one of you, and we hope that you continue to be part of the CC's family, and we can be able to grow further because Rafael and we have been connected with each other through one coursework, and now we are connected for bigger and bigger program, and same I expect with Colonel Sir and as well as with Vidya. So thank you very much for your time. I can see on the Facebook, YouTube, and on CCE Finland website, we have a lot of educators, researchers, and giving comments on that. Thank you very much for your questions. Some of the questions we have already taken while asking to each of the panelists. Thank you very much for that, and we are looking forward to meet you soon as well. Welcome again on next Monday at 3 o'clock Finland time for the Christmas party, and then we wish you a happy next year as well for 2021, and looking forward to meet you again. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless you. Appreciation to all of you. Thanks for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Stay safe, everybody.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you.
It was
Cheers.
very interesting. Thank you very much.